what I figured. Exactly what I figured what was going on there. Okay. Alright, so I'm gonna tie wrap these together so I know what orientation they go in. The reason I'm doing this is grinding this head of this bolt off is it won't come out. It's stuck. So I don't want to break anything. Of course, that bolt goes back in the water pump right there. Sorry about on one of those last videos, I was knocking the freeze plug out and I had my hand right in the way of it. I'm like, you know, and you can't go back and get the shot after you already done it. That was the last freeze plug. Alright, so let me show you what's up right here. So that's a bolt normally. You saw me cut the head off, and it goes all the way through the water pump and the timing cover into the engine block back there. And this thing was just frozen. It wouldn't move at all. So what I suspected is true. It's frozen up right there in the water pump. Evidently there's been a leak or something. That one was okay, and that one's okay. I already tried those. So anyway, I gotta clear that out a little bit and see if I can get some lube in there and might put some heat on it so we can get her out. So I wish I understood why that every time I watch somebody take something apart on YouTube, like all these old rusted bolts and fasteners and stuff like that, first thing they do when it's a bolt, it's all the way in, for instance, first thing they do is they take this stuff and they just douse it down. Shh, we're gonna spray some lube on this and get this bolt freed up here so it'll come out. Like this bolt here. This bolt is torqued down to 30 foot-pounds of torque. It is tied against this. There is no way this stuff goes in there. I sprayed this, and you can see it never went in there. It doesn't work. It's just for show. It has to be on the threads. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. So every time you see somebody do that, just remember, they're just doing it just to act like they're doing something. It's not true. does not sound tight. Let's see if it is or not. Okay, come on, boy. Where'd you put your pliers at? I'm telling you guys, I can misplace anything. If I use it 5 minutes ago, I'll set it down and who knows where it went. Oh, not yet. That's what YouTube says to do. So the bolt's not coming out yet. So we have to go another direction here. Literally. Okay, I gotta pull this bouncer off now. Yay. Alright. Keep going on it. It's been a while since I've used this guy. Man, sad part is I'm having to remember how to use some of these tools. It's been so long. I think we're set up here pretty well. I could do this with an impact, but I'm not going to. That impact only has one speed on it. Fast. Yeah, this thing is not It caused me some difficulty, I guess, because the bolt has to be back out because it doesn't have a good sting in here. I'm gonna take another look at this to make sure I can, if I can do it maybe without the bolt now. I did. I had to put, when I was putting this thing on, I was having to put on in a different way with the different slots. I was like, that ain't working. It'd be nice if this harmonic valve should just pull off in here, wouldn't it? Try it. Why not? Well, maybe. Try it anyway. You have to be. There we go. Keep forgetting I have this thing, man. This thing's handy. Deal with that later. I will deal with that later if that is an issue. Hopefully it's not. Okay. Turn you guys off for a few. I'm gonna put my tools back up for that little operation, and then we're gonna start attacking that timing cover. Okay, so this is where things may get a little interesting. Taking this fuel pump off. It smells like rotten gas in here. So we got all the bolts broken loose off this timing cover. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take those out and see if things are gonna behave or not. But we're gonna have to, the idea is we're gonna try to get this timing cover off this stud here in one piece. Don't forget you got 2 bolts, one on each side to go up from the oil pan into the timing cover. What is that? This timing cover, I'm not too confident about, is really very pitted right here, and that's behind the water pump. And I mean, that if that thing gets a hole in it, that means coolant goes right into the engine. So got everything here. So okay, I'm just gonna tap 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 with my hammer here. See how this thing acts. I'm not going to be over, I mean, I like to save it if I can, if it's savable, but I'm not going to be overly worried if it doesn't. I know there's stuff falling right here, but we're gonna have the oil pan and everything off this anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's making noise. Need to be getting behind that with something down there at the bottom. About the world's largest prying screwdriver. Be careful with this, because I don't want to. I don't want to mark up any surfaces that I don't have to. Check out the snot up here they got. I don't know if they might have had that intake off at one point, because I don't recall the fact of doing that. Huh, okay. Yep, it needs a timing chain, that's for sure. Okay, let me clean that off real quick. It's an oil slinger. Make sure that goes the right way. Yeah. This is a nylon timing gear, by the way. Chrysler nylon paste timing gear, part number 2843610. Yeah. Okay, so I see what's looks like is happening here. This thing is, it's seized again right here. It's rusted right here. Looks like that's a stupid design. Looks like right here below the cooling passage here, it's just seeped out coolant over some time, and as Phil would say, it's froze up. So I think this if it's like this one, that goes into the cooling passage also, so it may have God, it's always good news, isn't it? So anyway, that gives me some hope though that we can get this thing out in one piece. So this is called, before I cut the camera back off yet, this is called a silent timing chain, or a link belt, but they call it a silent when it's got these little, all these little links in it instead of like a bicycle chain, heavy duty version, because the reason that's like that is because that the heavy duty versions can be a little bit noisier. So they didn't want Granny or Uncle Joe or whoever to hear their engine here making a little bit of a timing chain noise, like, just a little bit like that, which it could. But that will also make a timing chain noise. That's I don't know how many degrees of timing variation that would cause right there, but that has to be replaced. The engine's not bad inside so far. It's not gunked up. It's black, but okay. Well, I got my work cut out for me, so I'm going to spare you guys the misery of watching this. I am glad at least we can get to the back of this bolt also. It gives me hope that we can get some lube in there where it needs it. Alright, I'm going to get into it. Okay, so the intake is off. It wasn't any big deal, no drama. Doesn't look too bad in here. Just a little bit of debris just laying around in there, but nothing major. A little bit of carbon there in the crossover passage. The cooling passage up here doesn't look too bad. So far the cam looks pretty good. I'll examine that in more detail, of course. I meant to take these valve covers off first, but I was just in the zone there and I just didn't even think about it. I don't know what's going on here. This is interesting because this should be a gasket. I mean a physical gasket here. But this looks like just some kind of RTV, which is turning back into goo there. It doesn't quite look like what, uh-oh, I don't want to drop that down in there. I'll wait on that, but we're going to take the pan off anyway, but I don't like dropping stuff in there. Now this one back here, that's a gasket. That's actually what's supposed to be there, like a cork type of a gasket, I guess. But I don't know what the deal is with the front because I didn't know them to do that. But this looks like the original. These are steel shim intake gaskets, and I'm not going to use those again. That's what's commonly available, but I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use some. They've got some now that are composite, and they have little rubber type deals around here, and I think that'd be a lot easier to. You can reuse them if you needed to, but I think that's a better seal. Of course, now that's the same kind of gaskets that always go out on these Buick engines and stuff like that, intake gaskets, so I'll have to consider that. Anyway, all right, so I'm going to do a little bit of paper towel placement here to keep stuff out of here, and I'm going to take these valve covers off. I've had them off already. It didn't look, as I recall, it doesn't look too bad under there. So at least it's not sludged up. That's a good sign. Still working on this bolt. That was not what I wanted to be the case here, that it was seized into the block. I could have done without that, but we'll just deal with what we got to deal with. All right, so the underside of these valve covers is just amazing. Look at that. There's nothing on there except just a little bit of black coating. Yeah, it's beautiful. And the underside of the valve covers is basically a match to that. Just a little bit of black coloration, but everything is just clean. No appreciable sludge or anything like that. So that's great. It's what I remember being the case before. So I peeked in there, and the valve seals, which are, let's see if I can get you a good side here. If you look down in there where the valve is, that's the silver part there in the center inside the spring. You look just down below that, there's a little rubber piece in there that slides down over the valve stem, and its job is to deflect excess oil off of the valve stem so that it does not get sucked down in the engine and get burned. So they're all there. They look good, but I was probing them and they feel very stiff and kind of dried out, and they moved up and down the valve stem a little bit too freely. So we're going to go ahead and put valve stem seals on there. I'm not going to do valve guides. I'm not going to pull the heads, but and of course the valve cover gaskets are desiccated badly. That's where all the oil leaking was coming, I guess. This thing is just covered in oil. I mean, it makes you nervous when you see what shape the outside of the engine's in, but hopefully this one's gonna be okay. You can just peel those off. See, they're just, somebody said that cork gaskets aren't really a good gasket anyway because they're still kind of semi-permeable. I have to look into that. But okay, so I think this looks to be just what it is. I think the mileage is correct on this. I think this is 70,000 miles. I know the timing chain is a little more worn than you would normally expect for that kind of mileage, but the lack of sludge on it is a good sign. And I think, I'm not sure, but I thought I remember that one of these bolts in here, I don't know if this thing's got a cam oiler, a timing chain oiler or not. I thought one of the bolts in there, that might be something else I'm thinking of. So, okay, well, next step I'm gonna just do a little bit more cleaning on the top end of this thing, and then I'm gonna start working on these exhaust pipes. I'm gonna try to salvage those bolts and nuts, but you know what? If they give me too much trouble, I'm just gonna cut them off. Not even think twice about it. They sell those every day. So, all right. Okay, so the rain's let up a little. We got the tropical depression Delta moving through here in Tennessee. Okay, so I've got this engine flipped over with some difficulty. It is very top heavy, but I've got the bottom end exposed here, and just clean it up, getting all the old gasket material off the oil pan rails. I'm going to go around the bottom side so it just falls down, and then clean this thing at some point, and then flip it over and do the top, what's now the top there. But it looks pretty good. So I think everything looks good, feels good. I don't know that there's any reason to be suspicious of it, so I'll check everything, probably check a couple bearings. I think I gotta pull this oil pump off to do the rear main seal anyway, so that's some joy. But anyway, get into all that, and then be ready to start cleaning it up and getting it ready to button back up. This oil filter adapter, you saw me take that off just now. That is a leak point if you don't change those gaskets. You got one perimeter gasket around there. You got one between the housing and this part here. You have to have that for sure. You probably won't have any oil pressure, or being reduced probably. And there may be one on the outside of the bolt too. I think there is, where it goes against the outside of the housing. You saw me pull that bolt out. So anyway, just looking here, that heat riser is stuck. And the bad part is it's stuck in the closed position. So I've got to deal with that while I'm up here working on stuff. So those things are not easy to get loose. Chrysler used to have some kind of magic potion that would unstick one of those or keep them from sticking, and you can't find it anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. All you can see is the empty can. So it's very helpful. But okay, so yeah, the oil pan looked terrible, but the bottom end, it's just where the oil was sitting, you know, and like folks mentioned too, I think Howard said, you know, about the stuff just drops off when they sit. So into the oil pan. So just looking here at these marks here. Yeah, they're stamped. Let's see where they're numbered. But I don't have any reason to believe this engine was ever rebuilt. I think that was just from the factory. I would surmise. So, okay, enough just lollygagging. Let me get back busy. See you in a bit. So I'm working on getting this heat riser valve unstuck, and this is always a real fight. I wanted to show you something rather interesting here. If you come around and look at this, I took all the springs and weight and all that off of it. If you look there, you get the camera to focus, but if you look in that slot right there, you'll notice, well, there is a slot there, but you see that horizontal shaft, the shiny one there, that's the heat riser valve shaft. It's supposed to rotate. It does not, but you notice I've been grinding with my Dremel there with a wire brush on it, and you see those deposits are in that slot there that's close to the steel part. That's not rust. That is actually lead deposits, and that's what sticks these things. Over years and years of being run with leaded gas, and there's just, you know, it's not an exact fit there, so a little bit of gas, exhaust gas, always escapes that, and it deposits those little deposits on there. Get it? So anyway, that's what I'm working on. I think I'm going to be able to get it, hopefully, but I have to get access to the interface there between the heat riser valve shaft and the little bushing that it rides in there. Steel on steel, that's just great. But anyway, we'll get it. We're having a sludge avalanche. Okay, I gotta get a little bit more serious with it. This calls for gas. This thing had a lot of lead deposits in the oil. Like the layer that was right up against the oil pan. All this junk. A lot of lead in it. So makes me think this engine obviously spent a lot of its time running leaded gas. Whoa. Yeah, not so much unleaded. That's good. Saves your valve seats. Okay, guys, I think I'm going to call it a night on this one. We got a lot done over the last few days. But I'm sort of at a stopping point here with this because I'm letting this heat riser soak. I've been trying various kinds of remedies in a can, I guess you could say, and they're not really doing anything. So I've been starting with some heat therapy for it, and I think right now I'm just going to resolve to put some good old penetrating oil on it and try that. Let it sit overnight. We'll come back to this in the morning. So in the morning, I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to scrape that side of the gasket, the pan rail off, and then once I get that done, I'm going to flip it with the crank side up, and I can work on that heat riser off and on as I want to. But the main thing we're going to have to get into is we're going to have to pull that oil pump off so we can pull the rear main cap off so we can get the rear main seal out of it. This is one that's old enough that it has a rope type seal on it. If you've ever seen a rope type seal, this is basically two pieces of carbon, I guess it is, impregnated rope, and they stuff it in the groove and it serves as a rear main seal. That's technology straight out of the 1920s right there. And I used it up to about 71 or so. So you can't really get those anymore. We're going to have to we're going to put a rubber two-piece seal in, and then ideally you have a rubber one-piece seal like the front one, but that's not going to happen on this engine. All right, so that's where we're at with it. I did get this crank oil pan cleaned up. It's not totally finished cleaned yet, but it's a lot better than it was. That was a mess. And this garage is turning into a demilitarized zone. I fully expected this. Really, everything's going pretty much as I expected. I did not expect to have a frozen water pump bolt, but you know, things could be worse. I'm not even going to say it, but things could be worse with this bolt. So okay, so I guess I will end it here, and I'm going to go in and start editing this up for you guys, and if I can work it out, I think you should have seen a couple additions on this video. So hopefully you enjoy that, and we'll get back on this thing tomorrow. Thanks for watching, and have a good one. See you around.